goddamn military.
The
And
Pentagon,
I'm fucking livid that we are stuck in the timeline where Alex Jones is right. Fuck tonight, right, Reed?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, it's Justin. We're going live. If those of you who weren't watching didn't get at hold, the LNC Executive Committee tonight met to institutionalize fraud and corruption in the Libertarian Party. At least that's my opinion. Joe Bishop Henchman proved his point. His last name's Henchman, doing the worst of the worst and disenfranchising paid members. I'm joined by Reed. Everybody knows, everybody loves Reed, champion of Libertarian Party unity. Reed, the fuck does this do to the unity movement?
Well, I've been pretty clear that unity is not for backstabbers. Like you can't unite with backstabbers, but unfortunately there are a lot more backstabbers than people might have realized, maybe, or maybe some people knew they were there already, but I've been surprised how many backstabbers there are, and I've been fucked by some of them. Like not so much at a party level, just people being conniving little bitches trying to ride coattails who just end up taking advantage of you. So I don't know. There's a lot of fraud. So it's disappointing. But
Joe, did you catch what happened with the LNC tonight?
I just tuned in, and I'm a little bit surprised at the particular turn. I thought 24 hours ago it was understood that they were going to need to do some sort of rollback because of violations of protocol. And it's like now people are walking away with data dumps and controlling, asset resources as if it's like, no, it's mine now, and I don't care what anybody else says.
It's absolutely fucking absurd. I spent the past few days on the phone nonstop with LNC members trying to get the lay of the land, what's going on. The worst part about this to me is I'm pretty sure, without a doubt, that this is getting overturned on Friday. And so what JBH just did was to institutionalize corruption. What he just did was to, rather than walk back a mistake, rather than take the chance to admit he made a fucking mistake, that he got used, or instead of continuing to talk about a different story than Gilletta and not be on the same page as Gilletta, to say, no, she fucking lied. This isn't what she told me and she's telling you a different story. He just decided, nope, I'm going to double, I'm going to triple, I'm going to quadruple the fuck down, and we're going to disenfranchise those delegates because I don't like them and their Mises caucus.
Yeah, and that's not good on any front. You start taking a look, and that's where this whole thing turns into a mess right now, is because it's literally Mises caucus versus, the LP. And that right there is in and of itself bullshit, because these are people. These are individual people who made their own decisions, made their own beds, and they're using the name of the caucus to justify unilateral decisions they made on their own. And we really need to walk that back. No, time out, folks. Okay. This isn't the caucus. This isn't the LP. These are people. And these people need to be held responsible for their individual actions.
Absolutely. And to say it's not caucus, there's been so many lies spread about caucuses and about how this was all about caucus division. It was Mises caucus this, Mises caucus that. It's absolute bullshit. The Mises caucus never had a majority on the EC in New Hampshire. They had 3 of the 6 seats. They couldn't do something without convincing non-Mises Caucus members that it was a good idea. The chair wasn't Mises Caucus, but she was endorsed by them. She was elected unanimously at convention because Mises Caucus whipped for her because they believed in her because she had proven herself over the years to them, and she just stabbed them in the fucking back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I just joined the Mises Caucus today, and I've been, which is kind of funny because it's something I've railed against. Not the Mises Caucus, but just caucuses in general. That was what our last episode with all 3 of us was about. But to me, the reason I joined was partially out of defiance, just because I feel like they're just so maligned, that they're so. And I know I'm friends with a lot of people in the Mises Caucus, and they're being portrayed as though they're all either alt-right neo-Nazis or that they're extreme social conservatives, and it's just not true. I mean, most of the people that I know who have joined the Mises Caucus actually used to be leftists. They were Bernie supporters or Tulsi supporters, and they just like seeing the energy coming from the Mises Caucus, so they joined it. And, the Mises Caucus has been bringing the most growth in, like at all the conventions, they've been bringing most of the new people in. And then the last 2 times, New Hampshire, I don't know if they've pulled anything in Nevada, but in New Hampshire, they won a ton of new seats. And then in Pennsylvania, they would have. And, what happened in Pennsylvania was legal. I think it was a little shitty, but it was legal. But what happened in New Hampshire wasn't. So you just have all this fucking backlash against them, when to me they're not doing anything negative. There are a couple idiots in there, like I think some of the social media posting was idiotic and autistic, and it wasn't it wasn't adding anything. I think it was more just I don't know. I think it was just stirring a hornet's nest, which doesn't always end with a positive outcome. But, for the most part, they're just bringing people in and creating energy and building a party. And I don't get what's wrong with that. But
the social media was shit. There's definitely points where it's shit. Jeremy Kauffman, that can definitely be a fucking troll that's unbearable and hard to deal with at times. I get that. The worst part of Jeremy Kauffman to me is the fact that he's a friend of mine. I know the guy in real life. He lives like 3 streets down from me. I play Magic the Gathering with him. I'm really good friends with his partner, Rachel. They got 3 adorable little sons.
Why are you friends with all the controversial people in the party? Like, you live 2 doors down from all of them.
Because it's New Hampshire, man.
It's New Hampshire.
Yeah.
New Hampshire. You live 2 doors from everybody in New Hampshire.
The tweet I just sent out a tweet on my drive home tonight, and I was pissed off. I'm like, the worst part of the Free State Project is it has turned LPNH into the dumping ground for the Libertarian Party's worst. And that's really the shitty part. And because it's not like the Libertarian Party only sends their worst. They're not sending their best to New Hampshire, as we say, but they're definitely sending people who don't have relationships and family ties or a stable job where they are. So they're definitely people who are in a spot where they're kind of more keen to be a little bit more on the fringe to begin with. But they're sending people who have a lot of experience sometimes, who've been down the road, who have been in the LP for decades and finally see a chance to win. And they're seeing their friends that they knew from other state parties years ago who are sitting in office as Republicans here in New Hampshire. And it's really hard to convince them to come help LPNH when there's such a robust Liberty Republican movement here in New Hampshire because of the Free State Project. So kind of what we're left with are the Sarwarks. That's who we get. That's who lands in our fucking pile. And I almost lost it on Andy Craig today. He was arguing with Dave on Twitter. And Andy Craig was going on about how the worst thing the Libertarian Party could do is not run candidates against Republicans. We have to run against every Republican. There's no such thing as a good Liberty Republican. I'm like, okay, what about your fucking dad? Kevin Craig, Andy Craig's father, is a Liberty Republican in the State House in New Hampshire and a dues-paying member of LPNH. He participates in our members groups. He takes our caucus feedback, but he is a registered Republican.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to go get somebody to primary Andy Craig's dad? Or run against Andy Craig's dad and cost him his seat? No, because he's voting on libertarian fucking bills in the State House right now. So the idea that the Mises Caucus is bad because we're having a conversation about maybe not putting our resources where they're ill-used blows my mind.
That's one of the things that you're dealing with across the entire spectrum with regards to the Mises Caucus. Here it was, what was it, 3 months ago? We actually ran into the issue where an awful lot of the Mises Caucus spokespeople, the talking heads, Dave Smith, were talking, no, okay, we're done with the LP. We're going back to the Republican Party. We're going to do a Tea Party 2.0. And they made a big deal about that for, I guess, about 2 weeks. It didn't last long.
It goes in cycles. It goes in cycles. Yeah, and we're entering a new cycle. I think we're going to see a mass exodus in the liberty movement in the next 3-4 years, with another cycle in republicanism once people have forgotten about Trump and populism.
Well, that's one of those things. It's like right now the liberty movement, the Libertarian Party, has an opportunity to build on what is left over from the trash of the Trumpism and the populism and that direction that the authoritarians went with the Republican Party, the way they took the Republican Party that way. And if we don't take advantage of that and we squander the opportunity because we got to have these little petty infighting control freak issues on state levels and even at the national level, this is the time we have the opportunity to actually build. We have the opportunity to say, we are mature, we are grown, we are adults, we are the adults in the room, and boom. No, you're not.
Yeah. It blows my mind because I never thought I was going to see the day when the chair of the Libertarian Party endorsed criminal theft, malicious fraud, and professional malfeasance because he disagreed with people's political strategies. There we go. We got Reed back.
There we go. Yeah. Truck driver life, the service isn't that great. So.
Oh, wait till you get to Rogers
That's what happens
Campground.
when you're on the road.
Yeah.
You think we have good service in the White Mountains next week, Reed?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing my next 4 Horsemen episode with Scott Horton from there, so we're gonna have to figure something out. But
you're gonna have to figure something. I was reading one of the tweets from one of the guys in my state today, complaining, his internet got so slow. He actually had to drive 3 miles up the road to a stump on the mountainside so that he could get reception for his cell phone.
Jesus.
To get enough bandwidth in order to do what it was he was doing.
All right, we got MD over on YouTube. I say do what works locally to win office. If the LP has a shot, go ahead and run LP. If GOP has strength, primary the GOP nominee and bring LP policies by subverting the GOP. Either way, we win.
Okay, here's the problem I got with that. Okay, right now we got the Liberty Democrats or Justice Democrats, and we got the Liberty Caucus within the GOP. Now, every one of the states in the United States right now has essentially party control. There are very few purple states. So you either got a real red state or you got a real blue state. And in those states, those parties have so much control that literally the parties themselves have factionalized. Okay, you have authoritarian Republicans and you have libertarian Republicans, and the fight is during the primary. Whether you got liberty or whether you got authoritarianism. And it's the same with the Democrats. The Democrats are so much in control in certain states like California. The fight is in the primary. Now we have the opportunity, but as a third party, our opportunity to get the message out, is what's the choice between the major parties that won in the primary versus the third party option. So how do we go about dealing with that in those states where literally the Republicans own it, and because there's an R after their name, they could be authoritarian as hell, but the R is going to take it.
All the kids last discussion, governor, a proven track being huge. The current governor by a shot, and the current governor Senate, and everybody's collectively waste resources. We don't have anybody who's qualified, good candidate eligible and needs to state, we're going to have to run Darryl Perry again. And no offense to Darryl Perry, he's not the same guy he was 8 years ago when he ran for president the first time. But Darryl, when he was running for governor, he was a walker. He couldn't move on his own. He had serious health issues. He couldn't drive. His mental capacity has been deteriorated due to his medical issues, and he wasn't able to communicate these things. And so the question is, do we run Darryl again? Or do we hope there's somebody else because nobody's eligible for the fucking office? Or do we go all eggs in one basket and go after Chris Sununu when he's running for Senate?
The question I have is, like, doesn't it depend on what the position is too? Because, I mean, if it's governor or senator or something, then it's a little different. But if you have a more low on the totem pole position, like say there's some leftist that's running for a position where they have no control over economics, if they were just running for DA or something like that, where you could actually get some positive change out of getting someone that you might disagree with on something, but they won't have the power to influence that area of policy that you disagree with them on.
Right. And I took a lot of flack from libertarians 2 years ago when I was running for, 3 years ago now, when I was running for Congress in New Hampshire's 2nd District, and I started making endorsements of candidates who weren't libertarian. Libertarians like, oh my God, what the fuck? Why are you doing that? I'm like, they're like, you endorsed a Democrat for register of probate. I'm like, yeah, for register of fucking probate. She was running on a platform of abolishing the office. I'm sorry. AJ just joined us. AJ is our now most recent secretary of LPNH. Inside scoop on what happened with LPNH, and he'd actually just resigned because he's moving back to Ohio before all this happened. AJ, what is your take on the new institutionalized corruption within the Libertarian Party?
So it's very clearly the incorrect decision from Joe Bishop Henchman and Ebke and the other two who Longstreth and Hagen in how they voted tonight. There's a very clear cut and dry matter as far as how the voting should have gone, because Joe Bishop Henchman very obviously does not have the ability to change what the affiliate status is of any of the affiliates by himself. So a simple vote to say, like, no, you can't do that should have been obvious, regardless of any of the other evidence shown for any kind of wrongdoing at any level of anything. There's an actual procedure to change how affiliate statuses work. So
yeah,
I don't know what the motivations are from different people to change what. I will say, when I spoke to Ken Molman earlier in the day to try to give him as much information as possible. And when he pitched the idea for just giving all of the resources back to the elected LPNH, and then having an investigation of wrongdoing done, I was completely in favor of it. I'm not 100% sure what his goal is to investigate, whether it's, we're going to investigate Gilletta, or we're going to investigate the other 12 people Gilletta worked with, that we don't know all 12 of them at this point in time.
We got ideas.
Right. We have ideas. We figured out some of them. Or if it was going to be, we're investigating, the claims of Gilletta against members of the LPNH, which, here's the thing, essentially everything Gilletta said is not correct, but it's not like it was completely baseless, right? The things Gilletta brought forward had like small nuggets of truth to them that were like blown way out of proportion. And there does need to be, there seriously does need to be processes fixed and people reined in within LPNH. The problem is we were dealing with that already. And I don't know why And the truth is there's this huge feeling of betrayal now, because the biggest thing that upsets me is well, okay, the biggest thing that upset me before tonight, when I assumed that the National Committee was just going to hand everything back, when I was still operating under the assumption that the rules would be followed. The
rules
that Gilletta was going to overshadow all of these other problems, and these things were just never going to be dealt with, because, well, Gilletta was ruled wrong, so obviously these things aren't a problem. But like, as far as Gilletta saying like there are members on different committees who were not told the times of meetings so that they could be kicked out of those committees, that's just not true. I know exactly what she's talking about. She is talking about within the communications committee, there was talk about kicking out Leslie Ann Peterson. And I told everyone, like, no, don't kick out Leslie Ann Peterson. Don't vote her out. Like, I know you guys have a right to, but she doesn't show up to these meetings. And our bylaws say if she keeps not showing up to these meetings, she just gets removed. And it only takes one more meeting. That was it. That was the extent of the communication. I said, let's do this so we don't piss people off who are on her side. Let's just let her remove herself through the procedures. She was told when these meetings were and wasn't showing up.
You have the documentation on that, right? You had the email chain.
It's a signal chat, yeah.
You know, but you had the documentation that
exactly.
said she knew exactly when the meetings were. She acknowledged the communication saying she knew when the meetings were, and then just chose not to show.
Right.
You know, so the allegations were baseless.
And then the claimed thing that this is brought up because the EC kicked someone out without due cause. And I had some talks to the Judicial Committee. We may have been wrong in our procedures with that.
You weren't, and I'm going to back it up right now. Hold on.
Okay, hang on. But I'm going to say, Joe Bishop Henchman's letter went out on June 7th. We kicked Jackie Perry out of the party on June 8th. If we are to assume that Joe Bishop Henchman's letter was part of the conspiracy to, and I don't know how involved Joe Bishop Henchman was. I'm going to make no accusations on that front. If we assume that Joe Bishop Henchman's letter was used by these people as the methodology to create their new rogue entity, then we know for a fact that using the Jackie Perry was kicked out as part of the reason was complete bullshit, because Jackie Perry got kicked out after the letter was sent.
So here's the old bylaws of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire that we were governed under in November. This is buried. Now, I'm going to say, yes, we had a tonnage of bylaws. They were poorly written, poorly fucking organized, and they were garbage and hard to navigate. But in the session of committee processes, when the EC meets and they want to go into an executive session, if the executive committee and board shall have the power to go into executive session for any matters which they determine it is necessary, any discussion related to discipline regarding any member shall automatically be considered into executive session. According to George Phillies, George Quillies, mascot of the Libertarian Party. Everybody has varying degrees of love for Dr. George Phillies of Massachusetts. That implies a power to discipline membership, so right in our bylaws.
That was not in dispute in the conversation. So I spoke with a member of our Judicial Committee earlier today for them to take my statement on why Jackie Perry was kicked out, and they have not made a ruling yet, but they believe that they're unsure whether how this clause is interpreted with Roberts, which is referred to in other parts of our bylaws as Roberts requires a trial to kick people out. And even if this section says that we have the ability to kick people out, it doesn't explain how we kick people out.
Correct.
Roberts does explain how you're supposed to kick people out. So there's some question as to whether we are supposed to defer to Roberts's method in this, and we didn't follow Robert's method.
But we do have precedent. We do have precedent with Tom Alcier.
Right. Tom Alcier was also kicked out by a different methodology than what we did this time around. Look, if the JC rules that the executive committee was wrong in kicking Jackie Perry out, that's fine. She can come back in, and then You just follow the
You
procedure.
can kick her out again under proper rules.
Well, here's the problem.
It's not that hard.
All right, guys, we got a hot take from YouTube, and I kind of want AJ to answer this hot take.
JBH needs to be replaced with Daryl as chair. It's the only way the party can survive.
Wow, that would be.
I kind of want Ken Molman for chair right now, honestly. Like,
hey, guys. So again, I don't want to disparage Daryl, because the reason Daryl has fallen so much is because of his health and medical issues that have been very public about the fact that he's had a number of strokes and concussions over the past couple of years. Daryl is as much a problem in LPNH as Jeremy Kaufman for wildly different reasons.
There's a very good chance Daryl is one of the 13 people.
Right. It's very likely that Daryl was one of the 13 people who was active in facilitating the theft of party property. And Daryl was involved. Daryl went on a rant in the fucking LNC committee meeting tonight about how the Mises caucus was evil and the takeover of the party needed to be stopped, and the ends justified the means, and the bylaws didn't mean anything. It's not the same Daryl we used to know. It's not the same Daryl from Keene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I blame Jackie. I'll say it.
But that's one of those things. What's the point of the bylaws if you're not going to follow them?
Right.
Okay. You know, it's one of those things, in to a certain degree, coming at it from an anarchist perspective, as long as there's no harm, no foul, you know, whatever. But there is clear harm, there is clear foul, and we've decided as a party, the LP party has decided that there are rules that we will follow. These happen to be Robert's rules, unless we've written bylaws specifically to bypass a section of Robert's rules. So if you're coming at it and you say, no, we're going to follow the rule of law because we've decided that these are the laws we are going to follow, you know, you got to go back to it and you got to say, no, we have a procedural process that has to be followed if we are going to do this and be able to retain legitimacy.
Right.
And it appears as though that got bypassed in a number of different levels, you know. I got my own personal issues with the membership, not the MC itself, but the membership, because there's an awful lot of people who self-identify as MC who just come off as anyway, like they've never read the platform.
Okay, can I ask about this one? Because like I talked to the Mises Caucus, confuses me a little bit. Because like I really do genuinely like love the platform that they have on their website.
Oh, it's a beautiful platform.
They talk about like, oh, we want to focus on economic issues and not on social issues, but it's like you guys don't actually do that. And it's really funny. I'm not going to name names here, but I had a Mises Caucus member who was newer to the party come to me at some point in time and was like, AJ, do you really believe in open borders? I'm like, like, first off, that's in our platform. Second off, let me quote to you a little bit of what Mises wrote about this subject. Like, so I'm I don't mean to like drag everybody here, but there seems to be not a super amount of like cohesion around like policy ideas with the Mises folk, and it seems to be like more of like a culturally based caucus, and I just don't get it.
I think that there's I mean, I don't get it either, because the the figurehead, specifically Dave.
I love Dave.
Well, no, that's what I'm going to say. Dave talks about how we shouldn't be focusing on the cultural shit. Like, we should be focusing on ending the wars, ending the Fed, ending mass incarceration, ending the war on drugs. You know, he tries to break it down to like 5 major things that when he talks about the culture war, he actually talks about how we should be the ones providing a truce. We shouldn't be joining either side, you know. So, yeah, it is weird how much a lot of members are obsessed with culture when the leaders aren't and the platform isn't. I mean, I think that might have a little bit to do with why I joined today too. I haven't talked about that so much, but I feel like I think you're right though. A lot of the members, like just the average members, at least online, they're constantly engaging in the cultural stuff. And it's like, hey, guys, listen to these people that you like so much because they don't talk about the stuff you're talking about. They don't care about it. So.
Well, but I think that's one of those things that gets a little bit confusing as we go on with the discussion because, the leadership, they say these things that resonate with everybody. Okay, we end the wars. That's across all the spectrum. If you're an American citizen, you believe in ending the wars because we're sending kids over to die for apparently no reason at this point. If you're looking at economic structures, the world is falling apart around us. Our supply chains are breaking. The bankers own everything and they're buying up more with ill-gotten gains. So we recognize these 5 big things and they resonate with everybody. Left, right, center, they resonate. So when it comes down to, so it brings these people in, and because it resonated with them on that issue, they're thinking that the party automatically agrees with them on everything else. And it's like, no, there's things. Mises had his opinion. Most of the paleo-libertarians that we go back to and we say, well, Rothbard said this, or Mises said that, or one of the others said that, and they think, well, of course, well, no, they didn't actually say what you think they said because you haven't read them. Okay, what is the paleo-libertarian stance on abortion? Okay, Mises did his stint on socialism regarding women's rights. He was a firm believer that the violence of the state is part of what kept the women down.
Okay.
You go back on Rothbard and it's about evictionism.
So here's the big problem. We can talk about Mises' platform all we want. We can talk about Mises' platform all we want. We can talk about where the Mises caucus members differ here and there from the Mises platform really all we want.
Tonight, is it?
The big issue tonight is that the Mises caucus no longer means anything about the platform. It just represents the opposition to corruption right now.
Well, it represents it represents the opposition to the Prags, and the Prags. Well, okay, do the Prags represent corruption right now?
The Beltway Libertarians voted to institutionalize corruption, larceny, theft, and professional malfeasance into the Libertarian Party's professional ethos tonight.
Yeah, Dave actually said it really well on his show. He was like, I can't believe they're giving this to us. I can't believe they're making it this easy and doing it this soon and being so blatant about it. Like he was saying he was expecting some sort of pushback about the Mises caucus eventually, but this soon, this blatant and this awful was like, what? like why?
Joe Bishop Henchman is doing to Mises libertarians right now what the Republicans did to Ron Paul.
Yes.
In stripping them of the delegates, using procedure to keep him from being considered. Same thing that the Democrats did to Bernie. It doesn't matter how good your platform is. It doesn't matter how great of a candidate is. If the organization you are representing is corrupt and rotten to its core at the basis of its leadership, how the fuck can you campaign on fixing other people's issues when you can't even clean your own house?
Mm-hmm.
And we've been campaigning for decades as libertarians about how the other two parties are corrupt to their core.
Right.
That party leadership picks winners and that people don't get fair shots and that ideas aren't given a chance because it's people, it's who you know, and it's who you caucus with. And that was proven to be the mentality of Libertarian Party leadership tonight.
Well, that's actually been one of the big things. I think this is going to hurt us in recruiting some of the people. We have to recruit people away from it, wherever they are. And one of the big things that I've always been able to argue whenever someone says, well, why don't you run as a Republican specifically, at least recently, is just like, the corruption because you saw what they did to Ron Paul, and they didn't even wait for the next Ron Paul and Justin Amash to get popular enough before they just gerrymandered his district out of existence so that he's no longer a thing. Like the Republicans just got rid of Justin Amash before he had a chance to become the next Ron Paul.
I'm going to sidebar real quick to tell Caleb I take personal offense to this.
hang on,
Say what you will about
Men's.
Menzo's. My name doesn't start with the letter J, Caucus, but he's got a point. Jackie, Jeremy, Joe, fuck you. All right. I take offense to the very fucking basis of that. Joe, are you with me?
I'm with you 100%. Absolutely. And my name was actually named.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Back to your point, though, AJ, right off the bat. The Iowa Republican Party was straight up stolen from Ron Paul.
Right. So that's the thing is the Republicans have very seriously gotten better at surgically removing feelings of freedom from their party and surgically removing any type of libertarian feeling to the point where I think my Facebook is
angering people.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
But because they're getting that way, the ability to all these people who say like, well, why don't you just run as a Republican to get elected? The time frame where you actually can do that is closing. That window is shutting, which is why it is so imperative and so important that we get the Libertarian Party to a functional thing that can win these larger races. And the truth is, we have been making insane progress. We had 50 state ballot access last time around. We had 50 state ballot access in 2016. I think we had 48 states in 2012. Guys,
49.
We're the first, what?
49 in 2012.
We're the first third party to do this since the Republicans came up and said, we're going to end slavery and replace the Whigs. Like, we are so close. And it's not funny. Like, there's more elected libertarians at these local levels than ever. There's more than 250 elected libertarians across the country right now. And we want to fight over bullshit internal politics. Like, I don't give a shit what your opinion is unless you're out knocking doors, holding signs for people, unless you run yourself. I don't give a shit what your opinion is about internal politics.
Right.
Hey guys,
but
I'm sick of this.
Hey, Reed, no, anytime, Reed, I want to have you back, and we got to revive No Caucus for Old Men because we got to convince Joe to join the Mises Caucus with us and to put that episode in the burial next time. But absolutely. Pleasure to have you, Reed.
All right, guys. Catch you later.
Catch you later, Reed. Here's one of the things, though. The difference between the Libertarian Party and the other parties right now is we've done a very good job of cleaning house, okay? Republicans are corrupt. They maintain their corruption. They keep their corruption. The DNC's corrupt. They maintain their corruption. They keep their corrupt people in place. They keep their corrupt people in office, okay? They've proven that for the last 50 years. Corruption continues to cycle through, and it never leaves the parties, okay? My LP chair here, Ginny, has pointed that out to me a couple of times. Libertarians, once we identify a problem, we clean house. Okay? They don't stick around.
But we follow the process.
Yes.
So the process is next year in Reno, remember who the three people who voted no are. If you want to hold Ebke accountable for the abstention, fine. But Joe Bishop Henchman, Longstreth, and Hagen, they've got to go. They've got to go. There's no legitimate excuse for a no vote tonight.
The vote and the campaigning and the smear campaigning and the smear tactics and everything has been on caucus lines this whole time. Laura Ebke, as the chair of the Prague caucus, has not made a statement on this, even though it has been the officers of her caucus and the elected LNC representatives who are members and representatives of her caucus that have led this crusade. Her abstention was cowardice.
Right. If you want to hold it, yeah. I have no problem voting out Ebke at this point in time as well.
Fat Nick Sarwark says she's stunning and brave, and I trust Fat Dave Smith a whole lot more than Sarwark.
God damn it. All right.
Well, okay. So here's one of the things we're looking at. You're looking at the bylaws. You're looking at the way the affiliates relate to national. Okay, do we have to wait until Reno to call out national leadership for basically what amounts to loss of confidence.
Well, the first thing to do is go to, is it save LPNH.com? Yeah, it's at the banner. I just noticed that at the bottom there.
Yep.
Save LPNH.com. If I remember correctly, Justin, it's a petition to get the JC. I hadn't signed on to it because I was trying to wash my hands of this because I thought the EC was going to do their fucking job tonight. But I probably need to go sign that at this point in time. And I think if 10% of the delegates from the last national convention sign that, then it automatically goes to the Judicial Committee, which
10% of delegates from the last national convention can sign a petition to appeal any decision of the Libertarian National Committee or Executive Committee to the Judicial Committee. If they do, in fact, vote to disaffiliate LPNH, we get an automatic appeal and don't need the signatures. But this was just a decision to withhold our property and endorse the theft by a rogue actor and endorse letting unendorsed, unelected third parties have access to sensitive membership data. So go to savelpnh.com. There's a petition up there. You can fill it out if you were a delegate to the 2020 convention in Zoomlando. Then you can sign that petition with 10% of the delegation. We submit that to the Judicial Committee, and they can vote to veto the decision made by the Executive Committee. We are currently at 166 signatures since the end of the LNC meeting tonight. I have not gone through those yet to validate which ones actually were delegates and which ones were not delegates.
Assuming 100% validity, you're already over 10%, right?
I'm not assuming 100% validity.
Right.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination.
I can tell you, I looked real quick, and Adolf Hitler from New Hampshire with the email address adolfhitler@misescaucus.com signed. So we're not going to have 100% validity. But I do have the delegate roster from the Zoomlando convention to compare it against and make sure we do hit that number.
All right. Perfect.
By the way, to my knowledge, this has never successfully been done.
Ooh, spicy information coming in the comments here. If you pull up Devin Saxon's thing, here you see it, the Facebook comment there?
Yep.
Yeah. That's wild. I don't know what happened that changed Longstreth's mind. I assume that Longstreth was given bad information around the registration with the Secretary of State in New Hampshire because he seems really hung up on that. But to my knowledge, that was not ever in question. That was not required. I don't think our registration with the Secretary of State expires for another 2 or 3 years.
No. So we don't have a registration with the Secretary of State as a business because we're not a business. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire is not a business, and therefore you cannot register as a business. The reason the business registration filed in 2019 for a 5-year term was rejected by the Secretary of State is because we're not a fucking business. The Secretary of State considers us a political party. We are not a political party with recognized ballot access, but we are a political party.
Right.
The registration that Gilletta filled out was an entirely unnecessary registration. It was a registration for a political financing committee for campaign finance during an election year. Mind fucking blown. It's not an election year.
Yeah.
We're not raising money to do a petition drive for partisan candidates this year. That's why we don't have a fucking partisan registration committee. This in 2019 was the first time LPNH had ever filed that goddamn form. They had never filed it before because it was never necessary. Do you want to know why we did it in 2019? Because 2020 was the first time in history that the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire stood up and did a full statewide petition drive on our own with no help from the national campaign and no help from the national party. We had to fundraise and spend the money on our own. That's why that form was filed. Previously to that, the petition drives had always been handled by the national party or by the campaign. But in 2020, the campaign couldn't afford it, so LPNH had to step the fuck up.
Can we talk a little bit about like what you and I did in 2020 and why this implosion right now is so like horrendous? Like we did an insane amount of work in 2020. I can tell you right now that without Justin and probably without me as well, but I don't know that I was as instrumental as Justin
Or Gilletta even, holy shit, or Gilletta, we would not have gotten 50 state ballot access in this country. And I don't mean like someone else would have done it or we would have had to find someone else to do it. No, we were begging people. There was nobody else. We got it done with the people who were there. We were begging people and people weren't helping us. Like about 10 people in the entire state of New Hampshire put in a significant amount of time to actually petition. And amongst those 10, I would say it was really down to 3 of us.
Like three of us that really poured hours and hours and hours into this. And in that time, we did not hit that 4% threshold, but like we saw our raw numbers go up last year as far as vote totals go. And we have this insane positive momentum. It is not outside the realm of possibility that we can get ballot access next year. We can secure ballot access and major party status next year. And that just like our ability to do that is cut at the knees by the people who did this.
Caleb, I think you're 100% right. If Gilletta had a problem with the fact that she felt she couldn't exercise her authority as chair and that there was problems going on in the party that were affecting her ability to chair the party, she had an obligation to resign, not steal, defraud, and corrupt the organization. And the biggest part to me, the two driving instances of Gilletta's argument for the need to disaffiliation. One, that the EC violated the bylaws by kicking Jackie out. Gilletta was the chair of the party. Gilletta had every right to rule that motion out of order, and she did not. Instead, she's the one who brought all the evidence of Jackie's wrongdoing to the EC, and she's the one who caused that vote to happen, and she sat back and chose not to rule it out of order and goaded the EC into doing it. 2.
I don't want to say that she goaded us. But
here's the thing. Because of recent events, I'm not so trustworthy of Gilletta, and I kind of look at what Jackie's posted about how Gilletta straight up lied to you guys about some of those circumstances and how that information got into Jackie's hands, and I'm wondering if Gilletta didn't set it the fuck up.
Maybe.
Like, Jackie's not the most reliable person in the world, but she doesn't really lie. She just speaks her fucking mind with no filter.
Okay.
And it's a dangerous thing for her to do because she's got a fucked up mind.
I'll hold my tongue.
But the other thing, Jeremy Kaufman's control of the Twitter account, the goddamn communications committee is an ad hoc committee. It's not in the bylaws. Do you know what the chair has the authority to do to an ad hoc committee? Remove a member at any time. Doesn't need EC approval.
Yep. Now, granted, our bylaws are super complicated, and I don't know that Gilletta knew that, but this is just some of the things but like reading the bylaws would have been easier than starting a new organization, like no matter how complicated they are.
That's one of the things about bylaws is right now, I do not think that there is a Libertarian affiliate anywhere in the nation that has a cohesive set of bylaws. There's jacked up stuff in everybody's organization. You know, we had to go through and do an overhaul here in Idaho, you know, and we did that twice because of the whole COVID thing. We couldn't get enough people in one place to actually have a quorum, you know, for our votes for our leadership elections, you know, at the last convention, you know, because of COVID. So we had to get together and waive rules in order to allow Zoom meetings to occur and for people to vote via Zoom, which would, and this whole last year actually exposed an awful lot of weaknesses in bylaws for groups all across the nation. But and that's one of the things. I think Carrie Ann and certain other leadership within the Libertarian Party realized this last year as a result of all of this stuff, is that every Libertarian affiliate needs to go through their bylaws and unscrew them.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. To Devin's question here. Okay. I think I might. So I don't know if Gilletta did or did not know whether she could remove Jeremy. I can tell you that Gilletta didn't want to unceremoniously delete certain tweets because she was afraid that she would be removed as chair. And she told me that fear in one-on-one text from time to time. And I think that may have been her biggest fear is even if she did realize that she had that ability, she was afraid that she would be taken out as chair. I did try to have Jeremy Kaufman removed from that committee probably a week ago. I sent out a motion to the EC and it didn't pass. And since then, what was it? He sent something else out recently that pissed off a lot of other people. I don't even remember what they all are. They all string together at this point.
Yeah, it's a lot. And here's the thing. It
I feel
doesn't
like people
matter.
are starting to sour on him.
It doesn't matter because nothing Jeremy said on the Twitter constitutes just cause for the actions that were taken against the members of the party.
Not. Yeah. Nothing justifies stealing shit. Nothing here justifies that.
It's absolutely obscene, and the fact that the bigger thing to me is, again, I keep going back to the fact that Joe Bishop Henchman had 10 ways out of this. Joe Bishop Henchman was given every fucking opportunity to backpedal and say, oh no, Gilletta lied to me.
Right.
Because Joe Bishop Henchman put his story out first of what Gilletta told him, and then Gilletta very, very publicly said he was wrong, that I told him I was doing this and he had full knowledge. Joe Bishop Henchman had every opportunity to back up Battle and say Gilletta was lying. And the fact that he refused to do that makes me question which one of them is actually fucking lying.
So, I mean, my speculation is that Gilletta Jarvis got that's a very good question. But my speculation is that Gilletta Jarvis got bad information from different prags who were in different parts of the party, and they lied to her, and she got in her head that certain things were going on that were not going on, and then it sort of snakes its way up, however high it has to go, possibly to Joe Bishop Henchman, and there's just a string of misinformation, and I think it starts from a seed of deceit at the bottom level. And it's probably not great to speculate on this, but given the screenshots that came out in Karen Ann Harlos's, evidence dump, I think what happened is Leslie Ann Peterson lied to Gilletta about what was going on in different levels of the party, and I think Leslie Ann Peterson scared Gilletta into doing this. I really don't think Gilletta ever set out to say, like, I'm gonna cut the knees out of from the Libertarian Party, or I'm gonna try to hurt the cause of freedom. I think she did something wrong because she felt like she had to, and I think that she felt that she was in the right. And I just wish that more people would communicate, because this kind of stuff can be avoided. Because the truth is, Gilletta Jarvis will probably never be welcome back in the party at any kind of level. Now, I understand, which
party?
Right. But I do think there probably are people who are potentially in that group of 13 people who might be, depending on who comes out and says, like, well, this is the information I was operating from, you know. This is one of the biggest reasons why I want Ken Mollman's investigation to happen, and I think that they do need to define the bounds of the investigation. But I really hope that everything Ken Mollman suggested tonight finds a way to get passed by the LNC.
Well, Susan Hogarth has already thrown a fit on the LNC list, saying she looks forward to restoring the property and rights of LPNH's members on Friday. Other members have thrown fits. Karen Ann Harlos is actively circulating our petition to appeal to the Judicial Committee, as well as Josh Smith and other LNC reps as well. People are not happy. Like I said, I served on the LNC for 2 terms. And in my 2 terms, the most controversial things that ever came up was whether or not to censure Arvin Vora for being a twat on Twitter.
Remember how contentious we all thought that was at one point in time?
Or whether or not to let Nick Sarwark bully the LNC into paying him fucking $75 an hour. And that brings up another point. Everybody's been blaming Nick Sarwark for this the whole time. And I've been on the rails defending Nick Sarwark, saying I didn't think he was this sloppy. I don't know. He's kind of taking credit.
Yeah.
On Twitter.
It's a little odd. Yeah. Did you support? Yeah. That looks pretty rough. Maybe Nick is part of the third. Here's the thing.
I got no answer.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't want to answer me.
Valerie Sarwark on multiple occasions told me straight that she was not pursuing any type of disaffiliation.
Mm-hmm.
Like before this happened, there were rumors that Valerie Sarwark was seeking disaffiliation, and I asked her straight up. She said, no. And since this has happened, I've asked her, did you have anything to do with this? And she says no. So there's a part of me that says, that says, like, I don't ever like to assume people are lying to me, especially when I ask them straightforward directions. But man, you look at what Nick said on Twitter there, and it looks.
Here's the thing.
Bad.
Here's the thing. Based on evidence that has become available, and I'll share this because Ken Mollman has already shared it on the LNC business list. He has been doing a technical audit of the login credentials to the LPNH website from the back end, from the LNC IT side, to try and match what credentials were created, which credentials were destroyed, who was locked out when, and who made the updates to the website. Mickey Mullins, Stephen Nass, and Sean Dempsey were all locked out simultaneously, and new admin accounts were created in that instance for Richard Manzo, Brian Shields, and Kelly Halderson. And Richard Manzo and Brian Shields were the ones who affected most of the updates to the website. Now, that points to me very clear evidence that Richard Manzo was involved. Mm-hmm. And knowing how close Richard Manzo is with the Sarwarks, I refuse to believe that they were not aware of it.
Well, and just so everyone is in the know on how close they are with the Sarwarks, he's been for a long time referred to as the 5th Sarwark child. Actually was fighting over that honor with a couple other people in the community.
All right. I'm bringing Caleb on with us to tell us what Yoletta has told him, what Sean's told him, so we can get another angle on this. So,
all right.
Whenever you're ready, Caleb, grab that link and pop in.
Yeah. And then, of course, Richard Manzo works for Nick Sarwark right now. I don't even remember what it's called. The
Libertarian Policy Institute.
The Libertarian Policy Institute.
Fucking hilarious. He rents an office from Jeremy Kaufman. Like,
he literally does.
All right, Caleb,
Howdy.
welcome to late night bullshit.
Fuck. Yeah, I shouldn't even be up right now, man.
No, you shouldn't, man. What is it, 2 o'clock there?
Huh?
It's 2 a.m., but we've had a long night show, all right?
2:05, man.
We've had a long night where we're involved. You just watched from the sidelines. Caleb, where were you in all this? You've been involved with the Prags in the state party. You're closer to Nick than everyone else.
You want to know how this shit got sprung on me, man? So I had a platform committee meeting with Victoria that went pretty great. And then the day later, I get like a call from Carl Newman, and I'm like, hey, the fuck's going on?
Is Carl one
And
of the
I think listen, I like Carl. I understand. We had a call, I think, a couple of weeks beforehand about some random ass tweets Jeremy had that were just ridiculous. I don't even care to talk about that right now. We're solely on the
Corruption.
the LNC tonight. I initially, and I mean, shit, my Facebook posts kind of said everything I had to say. Like everything was just handled like retards in like elementary school. That's the way that I feel about it. Like, if they wanted to have a vote to disaffiliate, right? Like that's clearly right
Within their purview. They can do that.
Right. No shit. If the faction that wanted to do this coup thing wanted to like do this in any semblance of like I guess a real coup, I don't know. If they wanted to do that, they could have like tried to actually push for disaffiliation. That's not what happened at all. And like I don't know. Regardless, setting aside the idiots who tried the coup, yes, the party should have been restored to liberty. And as much as I disagree with some of the members of the executive committee at the moment, like, there is absolutely no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse for, just unilaterally taking control of the website, unilaterally taking control of just the shit in the storage locker. Like, now, I don't know. Manzo did post in the party group something about returning the property to the storage locker. I fucking hope that's true.
It took
really
a police
do.
report. It took a police report being filed until Manzo responded to the request.
Okay. That's, oh my God. All right. So, God, these fucking people, man.
So
like,
was Carl on the 13?
I spent like 2 months to get that fucking audio visual equipment for this organization. And
it was unneeded. The argument of why they took it was that they say, "Oh, we needed it for the SNHLP convention," but the venue had all the equipment.
That makes sense.
No, it doesn't, because the venue already had the equipment. Kirk already had the whole setup at Area 23.
Did he really? I didn't think he had that kind of equipment there.
They do live
yeah.
music there. Area
Every
23
night.
is a popular
Oh, yeah,
place.
that's right. They do have bands and stuff. So, yeah, I guess they do have audio stuff. Okay, fair enough.
We've had MVP there in the past, and it's always been Kirk's equipment.
Merrimack Valley Porcupines, for people who are watching.
Okay. Well, shit. Then clearly there was, that seems pretty shitty.
And they took everything. Did you see the pictures, Caleb? Because here's the beauty.
No, I've not seen any of the pictures.
If they needed the equipment in the storage locker for the convention, they would at most need the PA, 2 mics, and possibly a table. You know what was in that locker. We've used to use the locker all the time. There was tabling setups for 4 simultaneous events. There was the full audio-visual PA system.
All the banners.
Thousands of dollars equipment, all the banners, the parade stuff. Why the fuck would you need the parade stuff for the SNHLP convention?
Oh, God, none of that for a county convention.
They cleaned out the storage locker entirely. The only thing left in the storage locker were a couple of my signs that were placed in there, but they weren't in there to begin with. They were brought and put in there and put on display.
That's strange.
Because none of my signs were ever in that locker, because the party never paid for any of my signs and they weren't the property of the party.
Justin, do you remember when Richard Manzo accused us of Dollar Tree espionage?
This is Family Dollar espionage.
Dude, I just... Bro.
Yeah. So, what did Gilletta tell you that you're unsure of?
Okay. That is an excellent question. So when I spoke with both Gilletta and Sean, not yesterday but the day before.
Which Sean?
Dempsey.
Oh, yeah, right. That's a good question. Which Sean? It was Sean Dempsey,
Yeah.
not Sean Brennan. So I called up Sean Dempsey first. So I spoke with Sean for, I think it was like half hour and 45 minutes or something. Anyhow, the content of that conversation was mainly to deal with not the EC's activities, although he is on the EC, but the communications committee, because I kind of wanted answers to that. I'm like, how the fuck did Jeremy get the keys to the Twitter account? And then I had more questions actually for him about Eric Sawyer and some of the communications that Eric Sawyer had from the Twitter account to other Twitter accounts, which to me, like, listen, I understand, you know, I am not Mises Caucus. Others in here are, whatever, caucus affiliations be caucus.
Still not exactly.
I really couldn't give a single fuck about that at the moment. I kind of just care about people who have the interests of the organization. Like, people, honestly, I'm just looking for people that want LPNH to be a political party. I think that's a low fucking bar because it's in the name. It's the party, right? The Libertarian Party, right? And I think that there are some members that would like it to be the mouthpiece to try to get more people to move to New Hampshire for the FSP cult.
There's only one of those.
You're right. There is only one of those. However,
who is the one? Because, like, I'm very confident there's at least 2 or 3.
Well, the worst part about the Free State Project is that the Free State Project has turned the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire into the Libertarian National Party's dumping ground for their bad activists.
Yes, I heard that earlier. I heard you say that earlier on this very stream,
Yep.
Justin. And you know, you're not wrong. Oh, you're not wrong.
And I'm going to make this public.
Caleb Dyer, the only native-born New Hampshireite on this stream, by the way.
Right, but there's no Free Staters on the stream.
That's true. Well, hang on. If Gary Bucky gets his way and redefines what a Free Stater is.
Yeah. I'll say right here, right now, one of the people I'm going to lay the blame on for a lot of the recent troubles with LPNH in the past few years is Jess Mears.
Jess Mears? Oh, well, it's all because of Jess Mears.
Because she introduced Jackie Perry to Terrell. Yeah.
Yes. That's the infamous just downfall of everything.
It really was.
Went to shit.
Yeah. So, Joe, how long until Idaho gets disaffiliated?
No, Idaho's actually pretty solid right now because we just ran through a little bit of that Mises versus LP bad mouthing here, and our chair actually came out on top. The Mises spokesperson here in Idaho actually had to walk back some allegations he had made on some public stuff because it was unfounded. And we're bringing in, you know, our actual active MC people, the people who are actually working on building the party, you know, the ones who are active here in Idaho, supporting Idaho, which is ironic in a lot of different ways. And I won't get into the politics of that. But we got a lot of good people across the board. We're working hard. Jenny's done an extremely good job as far as bringing up the registration percentages, as far as the number of people registered as LP here in the state, as well as membership, both state and national, that's coming out of Idaho. So we're seeing a lot of growth in a number of those areas. We're getting ready to move into the 2022 election cycle. We got some people who have already picked up seats. Sean Luoma up north is actually picked up on the, I think, sewer and water board for Bayview. So we're seeing a lot of people cross the
Derek,
the constitutional ban on pot. Derek, that died actually, and that was really awesome because that died. The House, it went to the House floor. The House told the senators they can go screw themselves. So the Senate went back and tried to go another way with their constitutional ban, and the House once again came back and said, no, screw yourselves. So our Idaho GOP is actually split. We have our Senate GOP and we have our House GOP, and they're not of the same mind about things. So the ability to actually put that constitutional ban on marijuana in the state of Idaho failed before it even made it to the ballot. That's one of the nice things about Idaho. In order for it to be a constitutional amendment, it actually has to go to the people for a vote.
Yeah,
but
same
this
in
is
New Hampshire.
yeah.
It's the only thing we get to vote on.
Right. The interesting thing, though, is we got an awful lot of Republicans here in the state that say we need to go back to being a republic. Screw this democracy. This is a republic. And they want to go to this constitutional stance. Now, the interesting thing is while the U.S. Constitution, completely blew off the Declaration of Independence, saying we all had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
If you can pay for it.
Right. But the state of Idaho, that is the first paragraph in our state constitution. Everybody has the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the right to acquire and preserve property. So it's like right there, line one. If you're going for a constitutional amendment that denies someone their particular pursuit of happiness, which a lot of us, I know a lot of people that aren't happy unless they can smoke. Right? But yeah, no, that constitutional ban died. It will not be going to the vote. So that's a plus here in the state. And we're currently working with our ballot initiative here with Kind Idaho in order to get it on. And one of our partner organizations here, Idaho Cannabis Coalition, it's Idaho Citizens Coalition, just stood up and they've submitted another ballot initiative that would allow us to buy our marijuana in Ontario and drive it across state lines without getting arrested by the Idaho State Police.
So, Joe, have you taken a chance to look at Karen Ann Harless's folder of evidence that was shared to her by Gilletta Jarvis? And this was evidence about why she needed to do what she did and destroy the party.
No, I haven't actually taken a look at what she's...
This is my favorite piece of evidence. This is a tweet sent out by the Communications Committee. It is Article 10 of the New Hampshire Constitution. Caleb, tell Joe what Article fucking 10 is and why it's the most libertarian in the world.
Bro. We literally have this in the state party platform, slightly rewritten, but we literally copy pasted this into our state party platform because it's probably the most eloquently written provision of a state constitution anywhere. And it's probably listen, I don't like
I'm going to read it to you, Joe, because I know you're on your small screen.
Read it.
Government being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community, and not for the private interest or emolument of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, whenever the ends of government are perverted and public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right ought, to reform the old, or establish a new government. The doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive to the good and happiness of mankind. Not only is this evidence that she gave about why LPNH was going bad and she needed to destroy LPNH, this is still in the new platform.
Yeah,
they didn't even take it out of the platform when they said this was why LPNH was bad. Furthermore, this is what she fucking did.
Wait a second, hold on. Wait a sec. Jackie,
what she's trying to claim she did. No,
Jackie said this is
Gilletta.
evidence?
This is what Gilletta sent as evidence. Yep, I got the whole file of what Gilletta's evidence is. Here's another one of my favorite ones.
Go through a little bit of this, yeah.
I think I must have missed this because she sent me some tweets.
Ron Paul is an amazing man for the movement.
Ron Paul, amazing man, got me into the Liberty Movement in 2012. Still as honest and brilliant today as he was then. That's their evidence about why Sean Dempsey's bad for the Libertarian Party.
I mean,
okay.
He is pro-life, guys. It's very outside the platform.
Listen, I have some disagreements, of course, with Sean. That's cool. I don't care about disagreements. Like, my only concern, and I this is where I don't know if Sean was telling me the whole truth and nothing but the truth, where, I mean, listen, I want the Libertarian Party to be a fucking political party. I want it to run candidates. I want it to, try to gain ballot access. I want it to do those things. And quite frankly, I don't have all of the confidence in the world that all of the members of the executive committee actually want the political party to be a political party. Like, now, that's a totally separate issue from the weird-ass Gilletta shit that's going down. Like,
this is all the evidence Gilletta used. This is the extent of her evidence. She had nothing further to submit. Derek Prue texting to the membership committee and being screenshotted by Leslie. I propose abandoning National's control of our website and building our own. Don't you wish we fucking listened?
Yeah.
Well, that just looks like a good fucking idea in hindsight.
Okay.
There's a lot of reasons to abandon the website.
I actually think the integration is probably a good thing for data sharing, but
it makes sense from a data sharing perspective, but there's so many other ways that it hinders us from a perspective of trying to send out automatic emails and things like that. We have to it's a constant struggle. Stephen Nass can speak to this a lot better than I can, but there's a sort of constant struggle with permissions inside of the website. Now, see, this one I did actually have an issue with. I do think that we should not be sharing things branded by caucuses, but that's obviously not what Gilletta's issue is with this.
Well, that's I think what Leslie's issue was with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I wish William Kostrick wasn't on a boat in the Caribbean right now and get him to come on and talk about the fucking Tree of Liberty.
Yeah, William Kostrick's sign at that Obama rally was pretty badass. However,
Joe, do you remember how long ago was that, Caleb? How many years?
Oh, Jesus, that was
Obama was president.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
that was 2012.
So Barack Obama comes to New Hampshire for a town hall. And one of our friends, William Kostrick, stands outside the town hall with a
Member
sign.
of the Quill, emergentorder.io.
Yeah, it's standing outside with a sign that says, "The Tree of Liberty must be refreshed while open carrying a gun."
Straight.
Chris Harbaugh.
The media lost their minds. They brought him on Hardball with Chris Matthews, and it was beautiful. Because William just fuck you, I'm not listening. At one point, Chris Matthews was like, "Was the gun loaded?" And William was like, "What good is a gun if it's not loaded?"
yeah.
This is not that hard to find on YouTube either.
Legendary. Absolutely legendary.
But the idea that is something that goes against liberty and libertarianism when it's something that's so often referenced as a cultural impact on libertarianism in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay. Now I'll diverge here slightly. Now, from a political party page, this is I don't know, man. From a private page, fucking for sure. But as soon as you get into the let's talk about war, which that's what that's referencing. You get into a gray. You get into a gray area of the membership pledge.
But I put on my own campaign signs. I put on my own campaign signs and appeal to heaven, and an appeal to heaven is a literal call to arms.
I know it is, and honestly. Listen, I don't know if you've seen or heard, AJ, just to let you know, and I don't want you to get lumped in with those folks, but there have actually been some actual fucking Nazis in New Hampshire that have been using that tree and that pine tree banner, and I saw some pictures of some very concerning things with that imagery. I know you're not like that. But they've been also co-opting the symbols.
The swastikas are apparently all over Nashua. I've been hearing information. that Cat Brooks has gone out trying to infiltrate and stop them.
He's not
Maybe
trying to
it's
infiltrate. He's
interesting.
trying to encounter.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, he's been trying to find him, but and honestly, I'm spending a whole lot of time in Nashua now as well. I'm not living here. I'm still in Pelham until whenever the hell that changes. I don't know.
Are you at the? Are you at your music studio right now?
Yeah, I'm at the studio right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just.
While we're
dicking around.
talking about New Hampshire issues, I'm going to shift the bottom banner here for anybody who's still watching. I know we still do have a small crowd watching. We've been doing the whole Save
Small crowd.
LPNH the whole time, but anybody who's
I
been
would buy
listening
some
to
of
me,
that quill coin, but I don't quite have just a spare grand that I want to buy a quill coin with or whatever it is.
hey, so Quillcoin,
I bet
Quill-
they'll forgive the debts for the equivalent amount of a donation. I bet that.
Oh God. Okay.
so those of you who aren't aware, check out GoFundMe.com, Save the Quill, or check out our new nonprofit website, still kind of being spruced up for Emergent Order. All right, emergentorder.io.
I'll tell you what.
Guys,
I'll buy the new quill. I'll buy the new quill, a chair, and we'll put a plaque on the left arm.
okay, sounds good.
So
Yeah. Here's the question. We got the LPNH. Who's going through all of this, and it's going to get settled. Okay, pain in the ass that it is. It's all going to get settled and probably be settled this week. Okay, some people are going to be butthurt.
to put it lightly.
Regardless of what the results are. But what are you guys doing for the next election cycle? Do you
So
have
let's talk about that. That was one of the big debates. That was another thing Gilletta used as evidence against the Mises Caucus. What do we do in the next election? Stephen Nass, who's not a member of the Mises Caucus,
I have mentioned this, and I don't have
who's been a member of the Libertarian Party far longer than I have, who's been involved in multiple states his whole life. He's a second generation. I'm getting Facebook notifications right now about his dad losing his fucking shit on Joe Bishop Henchman's page in the comment sections. But Steven popped a suggestion in our members group one day, like, hey, Grapevine says there's going to be this super liberty Republican who's going to be running for governor because Sununu is running for Senate. Maybe we don't run anyone against him. He could have expounded and put more reasonings in the original post, but when we got down to it, it comes down to a lot of things. We burned a lot of fucking resources in 2020. We burned out a lot of fucking activists in 2020. We're recruiting people right now, but we didn't have. I still don't think we have the numbers of support to support 2 campaigns, 2 ballot access races. Maybe we do go all in on one, go in the Senate race, where Chris Sununu has burned a lot of support with the Liberty Republicans. And furthermore, another issue that comes up for us is the governor's race actually has some mitigating qualifications that limit the pool of libertarians that we have access to who can actually run for it.
For 7 years.
Right. You have to live here for 7 years. And guess what? The Free State Project's a migration project. Nobody's fucking lived here for 7 years. So we're going to be stuck choosing between Gilletta or Daryl as the options.
Rachel Goldsmith is eligible if you convince her.
She wasn't even sure she was eligible. We're going to have to convince her.
She is.
But she's got baggage.
Put her at the banner on the bottom, Rachel Goldsmith for governor.
But Rachel Goldsmith comes with baggage. Her partner is Jeremy Kaufman.
We don't have to tell people that.
Right?
They're not actually married. They just have children together.
Right. And that's what it comes down to. Is we don't have people who we run Gilletta, who's as great as she is as a meticulous organizer and doing the back end stuff and as project management. She's not a good public speaker. She's not actually that great at conveying ideas or convincing people of ideas. She goes off platform a lot when she does campaign. And the graphic designs that she chose and her idea of an aesthetic for the campaign was awful. They were some of the worst yard signs that have ever seen the light of day in New Hampshire. And this is a state that thrives on campaigning. There's yard signs for everything. I have 1, 2, 3 different yard signs for myself from one race. And Gilletta had the worst I've ever seen. Or do we shift back and go to Daryl Perry again? Daryl's not the same Daryl. We blame Jackie, but his health had a lot to do with it too. They thought he was just having a lot of concussions. Turns out he had like 30-something fucking strokes in the past 2 years.
There's a lot of so I mean going into next year, there's a lot that has to be done. House Bill 98 has to be challenged in the courts,
or else we're not getting anyone on the ballot.
Right, or else we're not getting anyone on the ballot. And unfortunately, like a lot of the institutional knowledge around suing the state is gone with Richard Manzo and Gilletta Jarvis presumably not going to be, on our side for this going forward. We have to recruit people to run for any of these offices. And right now, like one of the most frustrating things to me is the number of people in the party right now, particularly some of the new people who are like, we shouldn't focus on these top level tickets. Totally fine thing to say. We should focus on these lower level tickets. Also totally fine thing to say. And then they don't do anything to find these people to run on the lower tickets. So like I until I just resigned from everything the other day, was the head of the politics and campaign committee. And I have been basically nonstop asking people to run for these municipal level elections that are happening in the fall, and I have essentially found nobody.
Right, and here's the point: like,
and those are the most important races because the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues facing New Hampshire right now, is the housing costs, and so much of that is driven by zoning laws, and so much of zoning laws is driven by the local elections, and it's like,
fuck everyone.
Like we've got shit in front of us right here that impacts us on a daily basis, right? Okay, heading back to like even talking about the Free Staters, one of the biggest things that prevents the Free Staters from achieving more people moving here is how expensive it is to live here. The zoning laws have to be fucking hit. They have to be combated. These people don't even like look at the underlying problems that are causing their issues to like be prolonged, and it's annoying to me. Right? Like, okay, we're shitting on Richard Manzo tonight for one thing or another, like in his role in this corruption. But like Richard Manzo and I walked into a town hall full of Democrats one day and convinced a Manchester city planner that the zoning laws in his city were what was causing the high rent costs. Right? Like that level. Richard Manzo has done more to affect that issue than basically anyone else in the party. And he's gone now.
Right. He's gone now because his mind was poisoned by bad actors who told him that the new people coming in were evil and he couldn't work with them. Because, and I know because it's been a distinct and remarkable and acknowledgeable and visible change in how Richard Manzo has interacted with his friends, his co-workers, and how his personality has changed since Nick Sarwark hired him.
Yeah.
Like, he torpedoed so many relationships and so many partnerships and friends in the community because as just fallout from Nick Sarwark being a shitty neighbor. Like, and it's unfortunate to see it go that way, but that's how it's gone. But like to that point, like he's not the only one who's doing stuff. He's not the only one who's done local. And again, we're fucked because AJ's moving back to Ohio. But it was AJ who rallied, not just myself, but about 30 other libertarians to just show up and crash an alderman's meeting in Nashua to stop the smoking ordinance from happening. After me and AJ had already spent a lot of time in quite literally the smoky back room.
This is literally called Castro's back room.
Yeah.
And we were smoking cigars with aldermen and telling them why they shouldn't raise the smoking age while they were patronizing the cigar bar. It's shit like that. It's local level lobbying. It's getting to know your elected officials. Me and AJ developed a great relationship with a couple of Democratic aldermen in Nashua.
Yeah.
One of them is a goddamn. He's economics the one lesson away from being a libertarian, and we didn't do that. COVID did it. We got him to being a middle of the road, like less progressive Democrat. And then COVID hit and he's posting rants about how the lockdowns are tyrannical and new laws are freaking racist because they target disadvantaged minorities for revenue enforcement.
Oh,
and
that was incredible.
I'm like,
That
Ben
was
Clemens is like learning. Holy shit.
Ben is one of the best Democrats I've ever met.
But,
Like there was that one day. It was that one day outside of Castro's. It was actually at the Garden, where he's talking to me, and he essentially says, like, you know, any law, and I don't remember if he brought it up or if I brought it up, but we came to the conclusion that, like, yeah, any law that's not completely necessary is just another opportunity for the police to enforce it with bias. And I was like, yes. So let's like go through the list of all the laws that's necessary.
The night we actually lobbied, the night the aldermen voted on the smoking ban, we had lobbied 4 or 5 aldermen who were swing votes that we thought we knew which ones were locked, and Ben was still the swing vote. We thought this is going to come down to Ben. It's going to be Ben as the swing vote. That's the 50-50 split of the aldermanic board. And there was one alderwoman who we didn't even bother because she was a young, super progressive. She was on Bernie's campaign, young black woman. Like Bernie. I'm like, we're barking up a fucking tree if we try that. It's not even worth it. And then as other aldermen are making arguments that we've spoon fed them in this aldermanic chamber, it gets to her turn to talk. She's like, I can't support this. New laws are racist. They're going to use this to target black people. And I'm sitting there like, like, okay, we won right there.
That's ironic because that's one of the tweets I actually sent out today was, you know, victimless crime legislation is racist, period. You know, every time a victimless crime has been legislated, it was to control the character of a community and give police an opportunity to control the movements of people that were considered undesirable within the community. So literally the police defined the character and who was allowed to move within communities simply because they had this generic law that allowed them to walk around tasing teenagers for carrying vape pens.
Hold on, I got the video. Like, you want to talk about fucked up enforcement of victimless crimes and victimless laws? It's before my tweet shitstorm tonight, so give me a second.
You got to dig back through it, but I mean that's huge. That's been going around for about 48 hours now. You know.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Is this another person harassed by the cops? I mean, these videos just run together. Oh!
I mean, right there, they asked him to reach for something, and when he reached for what they asked him to reach for, you know, hit him with 15,000 volts.
Man, it's sad to see that, guys. I gotta go to bed soon. I gotta wake up in the morning.
So wait till you see the worst part of this.
All right, I'll stay on for another few minutes here.
They stripped him down and hogtied him in the street.
What the fuck?
They
took off his clothes?
All for a vape.
Over a vape.
And this kid's a minor. He's 17 years old.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but like, what minor doesn't understand the dangers of smoking vapes? Like, that's.
The thing is, they didn't have personal visibility on him actually using it. I think they were brought in on the case because somebody called him in, right?
Oh God!
Did one of those officers actually see him using a vape, or how'd that encounter even initiate?
And instead of spending our entire time talking about these issues today and police accountability, we have spent our entire night talking about internal LP bullshit.
So yeah, well, the internal LP. You want to talk about internal LP bullshit overshadowing the important conversations that are going to be had? I got into this argument on Clubhouse last night. I ended up fucking screaming at people, including Sasha Cohen and a bunch of the Prags, people who were calling for our disaffiliation over Jeremy's tweets. I'm like, you don't know how much work myself AJ, and a few others had done. And those few others included Dave Smith, Angela McCardle, and Michael Heiss in getting it fucking through to Jeremy to tone things down and back things off. And we had orchestrated a call between Jeremy and Dave Smith where Dave Smith tore Jeremy to pieces about the fucking Twitter because Dave Smith, the edgelord himself, was upset about it and had put together an actual plan on toning things back and putting out pointful and meaningful posts and poignant posts from the Twitter that were still a little bit edgy, but had a fucking point where they delivered a fucking message. And we had
you just can't have all edge and no point.
We had weeks.
Exactly.
We had weeks invested into getting the influential people that he would listen to, like, because Jeremy is great at Twitter. He is great at getting attention. Like the getting attention part, he's really fucking good at. But getting someone like Dave to coach him into here's how you get attention and deliver a fucking point. It took weeks to get that to the point where it was about to fucking happen. And now we can't have the conversation. We can't have the conversation about delivering bold messaging that delivers a point and nuance because nobody gives a fuck about that anymore because all we can talk about is the corruption. What Gilletta did was use a nuclear option to shift the topic from Jeremy to her.
Mm.
Because it doesn't matter what Jeremy did now because all of the Mises people who are new see him as a fucking martyr.
Yeah.
So we can't have that conversation with the Mises people and with Jeremy and all of his supporters because Gilletta made him a martyr with what she did.
Yep.
You know what nobody's talking about tonight? Jeremy, honestly, of all of the shit Jeremy tweeted, he did something tonight that I thought was worse than fucking any of that. And nobody's talking about it because JBH's fucking corruption and JBH's vote was so much worse. There was a young gay kid from I don't remember what state who was like really flamboyant when he was doing his public commentary. And Jeremy comments in the fucking chat, this kid looks like he would suck my dick if I offered it to him. The kid responds to
doubled down on it.
The kid responds to Jeremy on Twitter is like with the screenshot. He's like, "Hey, Jeremy Kaufman, I'm a minor." And Jeremy responds to that tweet with, "If you're old enough to engage in politics, you're old enough to suck my dick."
And let's be clear, the Libertarian Party has accepted delegates as young as like 10, 12 years old before.
Quinn Jarvis.
Yeah.
Like we credentialed Quinn Jarvis, Gilletta's son, as a delegate when he was like 10 fucking years old. And it was like 3 votes into the convention, he was voting against his mother.
Yeah. And and the idea that like dear Lord, what is wrong with someone who says something like that? Like it's
Jeremy be Wilden, man.
Somebody with 3 kids of their own.
Right.
Now the thing is I can understand the first comment, because it's like, did he know the kid's age? Okay. But it's like, after he was informed of how he had stepped out of line, he doubled down.
Oh, the double down for him is incredible. Do you remember when there was like dozens of women coming out about what was happening in Yal, and they're they were sexually harassed or assaulted?
He donated to Cliff.
He tripled down on that this week.
Okay.
Oh, so gotta be kidding me.
So what happened was so essentially as that was happening, when Yal put out their initial statement saying like we're standing by Cliff Maloney, this, and this, Jeremy Kaufman comments underneath of it with a screenshot of him donating $100 to Yal. Like, great job, Cliff. Keep up the good work.
Yeah. I recall that. Yeah.
Oh my God. And then earlier this week, Addison Rae, the girl who one of the women who was most vocal during the whole Yao 2 thing, just retweets Jeremy's comment saying this. By the way, the Yao tweet was deleted. So Jeremy's saying this, good job, Cliff, to a deleted tweet. That's on the internet. It's hysterical to look at. And she just tweets like, this is still problematic. And Jeremy responds back to her. She's like, keep talking, I'll donate more. And the screenshot of him donating $250 to Yao. It's like, Jeremy, you realize that, and I comment underneath it, you realize Cliff's gone, right? And he's like, oh, that's a problem. Maybe I shouldn't be donating.
Yeah, and you know what? I think here's the problem to me. Like Jeremy Kaufman is indicative of why Twitter is a problem and why internet and social media is a problem. Because Joe, you've never met Jeremy. All three of us know Jeremy personally. AJ, you've recently made your decision based on his online persona. You don't want to associate with him, whatever. Mm-hmm. He's not the same fucking person. Like Jeremy Kaufman on Twitter and Jeremy Kaufman playing a game of Magic the Gathering are entirely different people. And I don't know how he manages to fucking segment his personality like that.
Yeah. Well, because you see, libertarians, man, when you give them the internet.
We're all autistic. We're all on the spectrum, man. We're all that neurodivergent. Something's not right. You know, you put us in front of a screen, the switch gets flipped, and we're someone else.
Like,
you know,
I don't have to be responsible for any of the shit I say. Amazing.
Like, fuck it. I used to say that if I got a time machine, my first stop was to go see A New Hope in theaters in the original theatrical release. But no, I'm going to go back and kill baby, not Hitler, baby Steve Jobs. Because fuck Steve Jobs. Because who the fuck would have imagined that the man who decided his life's work was going to be to give every single person complete and unfettered access to the complete and total sum of human knowledge would destroy the human race? All right. Well, we've had a long night tonight, guys. We're about almost 2 hours in. Joe's joining us from a later time zone. It's 3 a.m. for us. Thank you for joining us, Joe. Shout out to Reed, who was here earlier. Thanks for coming on, AJ. Thanks for coming in late, Caleb. But we're going to wrap it up here around an hour and 40 fucking minutes because, hey, it's better to scream into the ether with friends than to scream at people on Clubhouse who are going to hate me for it. So, we out.